Welcome to the Caribbean Parenting Digital Show. This talk show is presented each week by host Alina Lewis and features guests from our Caribbean islands right here on this channel. As we discuss family finances, proverbial principles, child guidance, and academics at home, guests join in weekly to have conversations that give helpful tips about how to be a better parent. Like, subscribe, follow, and share as you tune in each week for new episodes of the Caribbean Parenting Digital Show.
Hi, good evening. I am Pamela Ramcharan and I will be your host for the Caribbean Parenting Digital Show this evening. This is a platform where we have conversations that give helpful tips about how to be a parent each day. And today we are pleased to have Trishana Sirju-Arjoon with us, returning to the studio to discuss wise shopping. Now, when we think about wise shopping, we think about making a decision to buy a product or service and not having to regret it in the future. And especially at this time of the COVID-19 pandemic, when there are many restrictions and limitations. So at this time, let's discuss that further as we welcome Trishana. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, good afternoon, Pamela, and it's a pleasure as always to be here.
And it's always a pleasure to have you. You know, we're going to get right into the conversation. And as we're talking about wise shopping, Trishana, can you define wise shopping? What does that mean?
So basically, it goes along the same lines of our discussions, that I've had with Alina in the past few months, with dealing with sticking to a budget and also making wise decisions about how you spend limited income. As you mentioned, we're going through a period in time where it's unlike any other, and we have the COVID pandemic in the background of everything that we're doing and all of our actions and all of our decisions and all of our spending. And therefore, we're dealing with households that have lost either one income or maybe even two, or are dealing with reduced income in some form or fashion. And even those households that have had no loss of income, what they are dealing with is being a little bit more careful with regard to their spending. So what does it really mean to be a wise shopper? I think during this current pandemic, it means that we're just being careful with how we spend our money. And being a wise shopper means that we're utilizing our tools, that is our budgets, in order to accomplish this. Pamela, I think you can agree that even households, as I mentioned before, that have had no decline, people are still being very careful. So, for example, the government would have, asked banks to reduce interest rates over the last few months. And banks have done that. And even though this has happened, people are still not borrowing. So people are choosing to be wise and be careful in how they spend during this time.
All right. And, you know, Trishana, we touched on the importance of being a wise shopper. And in light of the situation that we're currently in, COVID-19, this is a better time more than any when it is necessary for people to be wise shoppers. And why would you say that is?
So basically, we want to get as much as we can out of the income that we do have. And that means that whatever we are spending our limited income on, we are getting most value for. So, for example, as a financial advisor, as you know, I'm with Guardian Life. It might mean that my clients, when looking at things like, for example, life insurance, being a wise shopper might mean exploring options that you may have previously not preferred in the past. So, for example, I have clients who, yes, they want to invest in life insurance because, of course, it's necessary, especially so during a pandemic. But they would have wanted in the past to always have a cash value attached plan, or a plan where, they outlive the plan, they get something back out of it. being a wise shopper during this time might mean that you consider term insurance as one example. So it might mean you're looking at different avenues in order to get most value out of your money. And really that is what being a wise shopper is. It's ensuring that you get the most out of it. Yeah.
All right. And I mean, that's something for all of us to consider, being wise shoppers, especially at this time. And you talked about the insurance there, Trishana.
Mhm.
And insurance is one way in which, being a wise shopper, planning for the future. And
Mhm.
we also see when we speak about households, depending whatever background and so on, and being wise shoppers, let's say, for instance, going to the grocery, what are some of the things that people can do to ensure that they carry out that wise shopping and have that, especially going to the groceries and things like that?
Right. So everyday shopping. I don't know if you've ever heard the term "it's expensive to be poor," but it is. And if we just look at what that really means is by being smart with our shopping. So, for example, low-income households will buy smaller amounts because it's of course what your budget can afford, or they will buy cheaper clothing or shoes or whatever. But it means that if you're buying smaller quantities at the grocery, it means that it's finishing faster and you're not benefiting from the advantage of buying in bulk. So for example, in the supermarket, you want to buy in bulk. It will save you. I mean, it means that you have to work this into your budget. But in the long term, to answer your question, supermarket shopping, buying in bulk is one of the ways that you can reduce and be a wise shopper. I think in the past we would have discussed as well comparing prices among supermarkets and choosing the one that gives you the most value for your dollar.
And you spoke about we talked about grocery shopping there, which is something that each household does. But what are some other strategies that persons can encourage or put in place for wise shopping?
Right. So I was thinking about this as I prepared for our discussion, Pamela, and shopping around, as I mentioned before, is key to reducing, but also deciding where you want to spend your money. So during a pandemic, we are trying to be smart with how where we allocate our funds. And it might mean that we need to focus on what our goals are long term and spend in those categories. So for example, we might want to cut back on and I usually hesitate to say this because nobody wants to get told to cut back on their entertaining and on their leisure things. But during the pandemic, we were forced to. And I think it's a good thing in that we kind of gotten used to it a bit over the last few months. And so moving forward, continuing to cut back on those entertainment and those categories where you can make small adjustments. I'm not saying to stop it altogether, but you can make small adjustments and save in all different categories to ensure that you in the long term can invest in what you need to invest in. Um, I was just in a post budget discussion with Taifa, and one of the speakers talked about investing in retirement. And because, as we all know, during the budget, the minister would have spoken about perhaps increasing the retirement age to 65 eventually. It's a discussion that they're planning to have. And I think it's important that we be wise shoppers right now because we need to start really seriously to think about investing in ourselves in the long term. Investing in a retirement plan is not going to be something that we can consider in the future. It's something that we need to do now because in the future it might mean that NIS is perhaps going to be adjusted or reduced or some changes are going to be made and therefore that affects our income at retirement. And so being a wise shopper allows us to invest in the things that matter long term. So yeah.
All right. And even as we would continue our discussion, we just take a pause at this moment for our sponsor, SRC Private Primary.
Hi, this is Albert Munasar, parent of Sarah Munasar. SRC has been good for us in the sense that she has come a long way because of the personalized attention that they were able to give to us. She has been able to get the attention that she needs to be able to catch up. Sarah initially was a bit behind, and now we think she is well on her way to being able to be a functional student at her level and even be able to surpass what she needs to be because of the attention that she was able to get at SRC. Thank you very much for the time, and thank you for giving the dedication that she needs to become a better student.
Long term there. Can you explain a bit further when you speak about long term? What do you mean?
Sorry, Pamela, I lost your audio for a little bit there. I don't know if you could please repeat
Sure.
what you just said, yeah?
Sure. I said, even as we are continuing the discussion about wise shopping, you mentioned before we went to the break there about long term decisions that are usually made. Can you explain further? What do you mean when you say long term?
So basically, it's planning for those things that are some years in ahead. So, for example, your child starts kindergarten, was just born. We want to start planning for their education fund right away. It's a long-term goal, but it's something that needs to get done immediately, because it might mean that, again, with a limited budget, we want to set aside a small amount in order to achieve that goal. And the longer we wait, that amount gets bigger and bigger. So education funding is one of those things that we want to think about long term. Perhaps owning a home or saving for a mortgage is one of those things, saving for a down payment. Retirement, I want to bring that one up again because retirement is one of those important things that, I mean, we all look forward to a day when we can relax and enjoy what we've worked so hard for. But if you don't plan for it, and it's not something at the top of your list when you are doing your budget, then it might mean that you're not going to get to enjoy that very soon.
Right. And you mentioned also the importance of the budget as even as you are talking about why shopping there and talking about those long-term decisions. And we see how having a budget in place
Mhm.
can actually, it makes that wise shopping decision so much easier. What are your thoughts on that, Trishana?
Oh, definitely. I think over the last few weeks, we've gone to town on and talking about the budget. But that's because it's so important. It's really, really crucial to you spending your money in a wise way, but in a strategic way. Because you can, when you lay out your budget, say, okay, maybe I can cut back on this expense, or why am I spending so much on this expense? Is it necessary? Or maybe I can be doing something a little bit different in order to save money in that category. Or why am I not putting more money into my retirement plan? Or I've missed out completely my children's savings account. So, having it on pen, never disregard the value of having it on black and white and, taking some time to write it down, because it really is going to, like you said, help with you being a wise shopper.
All right. And now, looking from a perspective of parents, and how can parents actually encourage their children to be wise shoppers? Can you give us some practical examples that parents
Hmm.
can, encourage them?
So I thought about this, and the one best advice I can share with parents in this category is you be a wise shopper. I think children will learn from seeing you. I think unconsciously, if we think about some of our spending habits as adults, Pamela, we realize that we got a lot of it from our parents without them ever trying to teach us about spending. We learned about spending from them. And so, whether you actively do it or you don't actively do it, they're going to learn how to spend from you. So, if you are strategic in how you plan your budget and they see how you outline a budget every month and you work with it and you improve parts of the household and you're building and you're growing, then in their own lives, when they start to manage their own finances, they are going to automatically revert to that model because it's what they've seen work for you. And so I think the most important thing we can do as parents to help our children being wise shoppers is, yes, guide them along the way whenever they have to make a purchase. But the most important thing, you be a wise shopper. You take the steps necessary to do what is important, and what will end up with your income giving you the most bang for your buck, if you want to see. Yeah.
And even as we think about children, I mean, children, it is not necessarily something that they, when it comes to shopping, doing a budget, they might think, why is this necessary? How can parents actually go about, in addition to, they themselves being wise shoppers, but even
Mhm.
teaching them these practical things of even putting a budget in place, and even when they go out into the stores and so on, teaching them how to shop, to be wise shoppers. What are some of the things that they can do?
Yeah, I think one of the things is looking for valuing what you purchase. So it's not about allowing, so in their purchasing decisions, encouraging them to choose value that will last longer. I think it's a wise way to go about your purchasing, is in choosing value rather than just buying the first one or the best or the most flashy one or whatever the case is, but choosing value that will last long term. I think also what encourages children is seeing it accumulate, and that's why our piggy bank was so effective with us as children, because you kind of saw it getting, you either felt it getting heavier, or if it was one that you could see, you saw it filling up, and that brought you some level of accomplishment. So that when you did open it up, you were able to see that you've done this. So encouraging them to enjoy the accomplishment of having saved, and reward them with being able to spend that on things that they will enjoy, but also guiding them through that process. So helping them to choose by looking at the various options, just as you would when you are making your purchases.
And as you spoke about that saving, teaching them to save, like having those piggy banks and so on. Even parents, yes, parents have their bank accounts, and they have their insurance and so on. But even they, is it something? Do you think even they themselves having a piggy bank of sorts? So while the child is also saving, they are also saving in that regard. Do you think that is something too that would even encourage more the child to save, and being that wise shopper? Do you think that that's something that parents
Hmm.
do?
I think that's an interesting idea, making it something that you as an adult, I don't see how that can hurt. You as an adult engage in, because and it's interesting that you bring that up, because my daughter, she has a piggy bank, but she prefers to save her money in her wallet, because that's of course where me and her dad will have money. So yes, I mean, now that you bring it up, it is really a great idea. Maybe we have something where we encourage our children by showing them that we are also doing it. So I'm putting money every time I get pay, I'm putting money into this, and I encourage you every time you get an allowance that you put money into this. So yes, that's a great idea, Pamela.
Yes, it's only as you were discussing it there, it just came to mind, because of course I also have children, so it is something that I know. When they see us doing it as parents,
That's
then
right.
they also, they run with the idea, and they want to see who would have more at the end, if it's a week or a month that you check. So why shopping? We see how important it is. And Trishana, we're just going into asking a question this time, because we talked in length about why shopping, and even as you were discussing it, why shopping, and I was also thinking of persons, why shopping, can that also be considered for somebody who may decide that they want to have a home garden? So instead of a person going to the market or to the groceries to buy their produce, they can have a home garden. Is that something that you would consider to be a form of wise shopping?
Oh, definitely. I also, anything that reduces your overall spending from your income, because unless you have income that is going up every month, then you have a fixed income, right? And you need to, of course, try to accomplish, even during a pandemic. I've been trying to encourage my clients to move forward with making decisions, because we've been sitting still a bit since March, right? And we need to start moving forward and start continuing to build on our goals and our dreams and our interests, because before you know it, the year is going to be over and we would have been a year behind on everything if we don't start making those decisions. And so yes, a home garden that reduces our overall spending and allows us to invest in our children's education fund, or to finally get some health insurance, or to save it for something else, another long-term goal, definitely is going to be a winner.
And stepping into, we know we are in the month of October, Christmas is upon us shortly, but with the
Mhm.
COVID restrictions and limitations, what advice would you give to parents as they step into this season to assist them, for them to exercise this wise shopping? Because, of course, we have gatherings are restricted now. Persons are not, they would have those end of year parties and dinners and things like that. But what can parents do to exercise that wise shopping going forward into this season?
I think as parents, we tend to believe that our children want a lot of things, um, but especially during the pandemic, where we are indoors a lot and we are home a lot. I think just trying to do things with them will go a longer way than buying things. So maybe we limit the number of presents we buy. So instead of 4 or 5 presents, we say, listen, it's COVID and Santa Claus can only bring one. And so we reduce that spending, because it's toys that's perhaps going to get thrown out by January. And so reducing our spending on, like I mentioned earlier, on those things that we can cut back on. And it does not make Christmas less special if you just get one toy versus 10. Because you could probably spend a morning baking cookies or doing something together and they'll remember that. A couple of weeks ago, I asked my daughter what was her favorite thing to do with the family, and she said we bake cookies for Christmas. And we did it 2 years. She's only 5, so I didn't even think that she remembers. But she did it, and so doing things with them, I think will go a longer way. It'll save us a lot of money, and help us to accomplish our goals even in 2020. We may not be able to do all of it, but we can do some of it as the year comes to a close.
Right. And even as we wrap it up, Trishana, I wanted to get your final thoughts. Even as we had this discussion on why shopping, what are your final thoughts?
So, I mean, as we were talking about this, and as I was thinking about it, in planning to come and chat with you, being a wise shopper really empowers us to get the most out of our salary every month. It ensures that we keep moving forward because we are being smart, we are saving towards our goals, we're accomplishing them one step at a time, and because we are using because we are using our finances in a way that is going to help us accomplish that. So being smart with your spending is going to help accomplish those things because you're reducing in unnecessary areas. And of course, it goes back again, Pamela, to setting a budget, sticking to it, and utilizing the funds where you can to accomplish your long-term goals. And I mention again retirement because it's at the top of our, we're talking a lot about it now that budget it was just a few days ago. But it's one of those things that we really need to get going on. I think no one during this week should let the week finish without having a chat about how they're planning to accomplish their retirement goals.
And even as Trishana has given her final thoughts there, Trishana, just before you go, I would like you to give your information because Trishana is a financial advisor. So she would have spoken there about retirement and, those long-term decisions. So Trishana, can you give your information for the viewers so if they need to get in touch with you to discuss further?
Sure. So my phone number is 326-5412. And my email is my full name, so Trishana.Sirju-Arjoon at myguardiangroup.com.
All right. So I want to thank Trishana for
Thanks,
joining us
Pamela.
today for this episode of the Caribbean Parenting Digital Show. Remember, through this platform, we have conversations that give helpful tips about how to be a better parent each day. My name is Pamela Ramcharan. Good evening, and thank you to all our viewers for joining us for another episode of the Caribbean Parenting Digital Show.
In a COVID world, schools are closed and it has become difficult for many parents to dedicate and commit the time that is necessary for their child's learning, especially at the secondary school level. Victoria Literacy Centre's homeschooling online program is designed for you. Your child will receive individual attention from trained professionals. With specially tailored online programs, it offers academic support to all students in forms 1 to 5, whether they are mainstream or challenged. I admire VLC because it is a home away from home in a virtual space and caters to the specific needs of your child. I am Pamela and my children will definitely be a part of Victoria Literacy Centre's homeschooling online starting September 2020.